Those little pinwheels of pins that you get with your sewing machine or from the dollar store are just fine. Until they're not. Yes, there are better options, and I know that I have my favorite types of pins. I like a variety of different types of pins in my sewing kit that really have their different uses for different purposes. And I'm going to show you through them all today, so hopefully you can build your pin sewing kit as well and get better use out of these very, very, I think not talked about enough sewing item. Welcome, dear sewing friends. It is wonderful to see your smiling faces again. We are talking, in fact, sewing pins, of course, because I recently made another video, you might remember, about alternatives to pins and what else you might be able to use in your sewing other than pins. And in that video, it was questioned a lot about, well, hang on, are there different types of pins and what are they good for? And so here we are, and we are going to discuss all of the different types of pins that at least I like, and a few extras, because all the pins I'm going to talk about here, you don't need them all, but there'll be maybe about 5 that you really will want in your sewing kit. Now, when you get started sewing, you do not need any of these fancy things. The ones that you get from the dollar store that come with your machine are totally fine. Get started, you use them. But as you move along in your sewing, you'll realize that maybe they're a little bit blunt and they're a bit thick and chunky, and you'll probably ask yourself at one point, are there different pins that I could be using? Yes, there are. Now, I've broken it into a few categories here. Some are specialty, some are sort of, used for all types of purposes. But I'm going to list them all out and talk you through them, and obviously tell you my favorites along the way too. I am going to link all of these down below in my Amazon store. The link is down below in the description box. Yes, they are affiliate links, and thank you for using them. It doesn't cost you anything, and by using those links helps me and this channel support this channel so I can keep making these free videos for you. So thank you. The first of all, you will want your regular straight pin. And now in your regular straight pin, for pretty much all the general purpose use, you'll want 2 different lengths and generally 2 different widths. Now, let's take a little bit closer look at the pin itself. So to begin, every pin has the little head on the top, the little ball, and those can either be plastic or they can be glass. And yes, I definitely recommend that you go glass. So plastic are fine, but glass ones, well, they look nicer, they feel nicer, and they don't melt under the iron. So that's the biggest plus of it all. I definitely recommend that you upgrade to glass-headed pins wherever you can, and your straight pins are definitely one that you can. But your straight pin you'll want in 2 lengths. Generally, these are extra long pins here I like to use, and then one a smaller regular length. They both have their uses. The small one, usually you'll want in a finer length as well. Sorry, a finer width, because along with length, you have the width of the pin. And so this is how wide, how big the diameter is here. And essentially that also then means how big of a hole that it will make in your fabric. And so fabrics such as silk, for example, aren't self-repairing, so they end up having holes left in them from pins, and you want the finest possible. So it depends on what you're sewing as to what you'll like. But generally for me, I like these longer ones for big long areas like hems and seams and pinning that sort of area, because you get a nice big length and it works really well. But for zips, for example, this will never do. It's way too big. You need small, fine and delicate for things like zips, and lots of them rather than lots of big ones. So that's where all of your little ones like this will be useful in those more delicate situations. And so generally, I have the smaller length pin in a finer width, and the longer length I have in a wider width. And now the width of pins, well, it varies. For example, these glass-headed ones here are 44 millimeters, so 0.4 centimeters. I do not have any idea how many inches that is. I'm really sorry. You'll have to refer to Google for that one. So, and lace ones are 0.55. So you can see there's a bit of difference. When you get to the sort of 4 millimeter in that variance are finer pins, and the 5 and 6 millimeter are sort of 5 is about average and 6 is a bit thicker. So quilting pins, for example, are often very thick and long because they're going through lots of layers. So you need something thick and sturdy and quite long so you can actually pin those sorts of lengths. And so just to recap, your regular straight pin, generally 2 different lengths, and long, extra long, usually a standard width or a little bit thicker, and then your standard, more your regular length, a shorter one, but a finer one will be very useful, I think, for pretty much everyone in most of your sewing. Now the next kind of pin are the traditional dressmakers pins. They can be given lots of different names, but they're the ones that are just all steel and have no head on them. Now, I actually don't think almost any of us are going to use this type of pin in our regular sewing, like as we're constructing a garment, because let's face it, these is really hard to try and hold and get a handle of. I know I need a nice big like ball at the end to be able to grab onto, and I'm pretty sure that you're the same. So it's very unlikely we'll use these for actual regular sewing. But they can be called, they're perfect for lace. These ones are called dressmakers pins, so they're called all different things. But yes, therefore lace is perfect because they're generally a bit finer. Most of the time you can get them nice and fine, and so you want them for that. The other reason you would want a couple of these in your collection, as I do, is I have brass ones and stainless steel. And so, or nickel plated, I'm sorry, there is stainless steel as well. And so these do not rust. And so you will want a kind of pin that is super rust proof for long term. So you know when you have a roll of elastic or lace or something like that and you're storing it, and you often see, you know, in grandma's little bundle of haberdashery and they've got a pin through that, and then often if it's completely rusted out, it means it was just a steel peel pin. If you have brass pins, you can actually use them for all of that type of reasons, and they will not rust, and your beautiful laces or whatever you're going to pin in and keep them there will be fine. For example, if you're going to make a mannequin and instead of pinning things in, you want brass or something that won't rust, and these are really great for that. And sometimes you just need lace, or without a little big head in the way, you might actually need to use 2. So that's where those more, what I'm just going to call traditional dressmakers pins, they're often called that, or they're called lace pins. A few different names, as I said, but essentially the ones with no head. Now the next one is something that I really love, and I don't think a lot of people know about this, or maybe use it, but maybe it'll be useful for you. And that is these extra long, it's actually a florist pin. And so this is a super long, so this is the extra long pin that I was talking about here, but this like far exceeds this. I think these are 5 centimeters long, or 2 inches from memory. And they're quite thick and sturdy. And so this I use for a multiple of reasons. I don't have a lot of them. Mostly though for fitting, is because you can get such a long amount in. They're really sturdy, and so you can fit really easily. For example, when you're trying to fit, you only need 1, 2, 3 pins maybe down the side. Instead of 25 small pins, you can just pin and be able to fit yourself quite easily with these bigger ones. And the other reason I like to use these is actually at the machine, as a way of, as you're sewing, to actually ease in the fabric, and so I can get really close to where the needle is coming down and not put my finger there. I can use the pin instead to guide things through. It's a nice size, it has a nice large head to hold on to, and it's really easy to maneuver. So that's what I use these extra long well, they are florist pins for. The next one is the humble safety pin. You probably are aware that yes, you will need one of these. And now, not all safety pins are created equal. First of all, you'll want the safety pins for, well, it can actually create a pain-free fitting. So if you have a garment pinned, for example, and you want to try it on, but ouch, just replace your regular pins with the safety pins in place, and then you can put it on and off, and no pain. They're also handy for, obviously, as you know, turning through elastics and such. Here is the thing, you definitely do not want fine little safety pins, because basically if you can do this with your safety pin like this, you do not want this at all. No, you do not want this. Trust me, you'll know when you feel it. You should be so stiff and solid, like it's really rock hard and it doesn't want to bend at all. That is the safety pin that you want. I need some more. These are all garbage and they need to, go to the bin because they are terrible and bendy. You want a nice solid safety pin, just a few of them in your stash, ready for those occasions when you need it. Somewhat of a new discovery is a fork pin. So this fork pin is basically a pin that is exactly that. It is forked and it has two prongs that you sort of pin through together. Now, these are quite incredible. They're sort of really great for, I think they're big on quilting, but for garment sewing, I found really good for when you need extra sturdy. If you actually, when you are matching seams and cross points, this is perfect. I often put a crosshair pin in to keep it in place so you can sew up and over, holding in gathers and things like this that you really need sort of a good double prong instead of two pins. You can just use one of these. It really does, it is useful. You won't need a lot of them, of course, but when you need them, they're super fantastic. I got mine from a store, Sewing Gem. They were kind enough to gift them to me for a video I did on new sewing tools. I will link that down below as well, but these were fantastic. And Sewing Gem store, they are really wonderful in Australia or the UK. I definitely recommend getting your sewing supplies from them. And another specialty pin is a ball-headed pin. So this is one, I don't have one, but where the actual point of the pin is a ball head, just like our sewing needles are for knitwear. You guessed it, these pins are perfect for knitwear. So instead of having it super sharp and it piercing your fibers in knits, when you pin it, it's a little ball head. So just as the ball head works on our machines, the ball pushes through and it sort of glides through and pokes itself through all of the stretchy fibers in there without piercing them. And that's the whole point of the ballpoint needle. If you sew a lot of knits, these will be really handy. What I would suggest though is you look for ones that have a different type of head on them to your other pins, so you can actually identify which are a ball head and which are not, because otherwise I think it would be absolutely near impossible to know which are ball head and which are not unless they had a different little head on them up here. I would say that there are 4 types of pins I use all of the time. And for me, they would be the extra long glass-headed pin, the finer, shorter glass-headed pin, the long florist pin, the super duper long florist pin, and a good quality safety pin, one that doesn't bend, which is none of these ones here, obviously. Now you know what all the types of pins are and how to choose them. I hope it really helps you. I would love to know what are your favorite types of pins down below too. Tell us, because somebody else might just want to hear about your favorites as well. There'll be a wealth of knowledge down there, so make sure you read all those comments, like the comments that you find enjoyable, because that's how we all work as a sewing community here. If no one told me about these fork pins, for example, I would never know that they existed. That is what we are all here for. Thank you very much for watching, and do check the description box below for all of those videos and a lot of extra links there that I think that you'll really enjoy other videos as well. Until next time, my sewing friends, happy sewing. Bye.